All right. Welcome everyone to another edition of the InsurGrid fireside chat. Just a weekly webinar where we like to bring on, customers of InsurGrid and just agents in the industry and just share best practices. So, want to introduce Levi Helsel, our agent spotlight today. Levi, thanks for joining.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, would love to, first off, just learn more about, yourself, your agency, and just more into your background and how you got into this crazy world of insurance.
Yeah, so I started my agency almost 5 years ago, probably about 4.5 years ago. I originally had a business partner. He came from the commercial space. He spoke fluent Mandarin Chinese. He moved over to the U.S. when he was 5. And I'm really bad at going on long and long stories, but I'll try to simplify it. So, I was in real estate at the time, and he said, "Hey, I'm thinking about opening my own agency. I'm going to need someone to help me on the personal line side, things like that." And I said, "Okay." I wasn't really happy with what I was doing in the real estate sphere. I was working with a lot of foreclosures, so I wanted to try it out. So we got everything set up, and about a month after we opened up shop, he got into a car accident and passed away.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty shocking. He was my best friend and my business partner. And I was left like, what am I going to do? I didn't really have any insurance experience. I didn't have any contacts other than my real estate contacts. But, I got everything set up. We got the lease in place for the space. And I said, okay, let me just run with this and see how it goes. So, the hardest thing was really getting the carriers. They want to see production or experience or whatever. And now that I don't have him, our whole business plan was kind of shattered. So, a few carriers gave me a shot. I kind of funded as much business as I could with them. And then the rest came, and now I have 13 different personal lines carriers, a few different commercial line carriers, and kind of just went from there. But that's in a nutshell, without getting in too far. That's kind of how I got into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my real estate network has really been a big influence in my referrals and business. I mean, without that, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, and in talking more about, your agency today, tell me a little bit more about that. Are you focused more commercial or on the personal line side?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm probably about 95% personal lines. I'm trying to get into some small commercial now. Obviously, with the pandemic, it's been tough. During it, right in the beginning, I started doing a small commercial business specialist program and through the Hartford, and I got that designation. And like I said, then the pandemic happened, so it's been kind of hard to prospect, but that's where I want to get to. I mean, I'd love to get to kind of like a 50-50 split between the two, just because the commercial, obviously, higher premiums, things like that. And it just kind of makes it interesting to build those packages together. It's not cookie cutter as much as the personal lines.
Sure.
But yeah, right now I'm mainly personal lines, just myself and my sister. She's another producer. But yeah.
And how are you driving? So 95% personal lines. Want to get that more of an even split maybe with commercial. On the personal line side of the house, we have a lot of agents obviously that sell a lot of personal lines. How are you driving business today, and what for you, without giving away too many of your secrets, has been really instrumental in growing your book on the personal line side?
Yeah, I mean, not too many secrets. In the beginning, I tried the live transfer calls, the internet leads, things like that. And it just really, to me, ended up being too much time. It works for some people, but for the way that I wanted to build my agency, it was just consuming too much of my time to, follow up on these, calls and emails and things like that to all these different to leads. So I wanted to focus more on solid, customers who are going to stay with me long term than, these internet leads who might be gone in 6 months or whatever it might be. So like I said, I really, kind of honed in on my real estate referral network. And I had a couple mortgage brokers who I had, personal and professional relationships with, reached out to them. The one guy kind of gave me a shot on a thing. He said, here's a referral. He's like, I, need this done by this date, whatever. And I got it back to him that day, and it worked, with their debt to income, everything. And since then, I mean, he's sent me probably 30% of my business. I mean, he just sends me probably, I don't know, 10, 12 referrals per month. And they're almost 90, I'd say 90% close rate on all those. And I quote them on the home and get the auto as well. But that's really been my process. And then other than that, I belong to networking groups, BNI. My sister does a lot of my social media marketing and things like that. I do use EasyLinks as my management system, and they have a lot of nice tools for, just alerts for when renewals come up. I have it set if it's over a certain amount percentage, I get notified, to contact them, make sure that everything's the same if they want me to, kind of take a look at that, email drip campaigns, things like that. And then with InsurGrid, it's been great. I mean, the mortgage guy that I deal with, he kind of just uses that link, sends it out, and people will just enter in their information. I get all the declaration pages, and it makes it a lot more streamlined, because I found out that the younger people do not want to speak on the phone at all. I mean, I'll call them, they won't answer, they'll text me, and then I'll try to call them again and they won't answer, and they'll text me, and that's just kind of what it's been. So yeah.
And a lot of people, a lot of insurance agents want to work with these centers of influence, whether that be the mortgage broker, whether that be the loan officer, the real estate agent, financial advisor, maybe a CPA. What have you seen work with developing relationships with these centers of influence? And if someone was just starting out as an agent, what would you advise them on, who to target? Maybe there's one specific maybe loan officer or real estate agent, like who would you target and how would you go about getting in front of those people?
So, I think a lot of people are disencouraged. They feel like, well, they probably have a producer that they work with already. They've been a loan officer for a long time, whatever. But you'd be surprised at how many of them actually don't have someone that they consistently send business to. And that's what I found out with the guy that I knew. He really didn't have someone that he was consistently sending business to. He started using me, quick turnaround times. I always contacted the clients, referrals. And honestly, every office is going to be different, but he's his own bank, so he's not a broker, but he has the loan processors, the underwriters, they're all kind of in his office. And I would say 80% of the time I'm getting these referrals from the loan processors, so those are the people you want to keep happy. I take them to lunch, give them, Christmas gifts, things like that, but honestly, I would just say, don't do something because you don't think it's going to work. If you don't try, it's going to be a no for sure. So I would just say, go out there, try to talk to them. They may not have time, but try to reschedule and just show them that you're willing and able to do the work. And honestly, I found out that as long as you treat their clients with respect, it looks good on them, and they really don't want anything in return. He's just happy. And I've asked him, I said, what can I do for you? Whatever. And he's like, obviously if you have referrals, but those are going to be, harder to come by. I know that, but honestly, if you just keep my clients happy, that's getting me closer to close. And he's like, I'm happy. So, they just want someone that is going to respond to them and do what they say.
Yeah, that's a great insight. And so it seems like within the center of influence with all these different referral partners, the loan officer and a loan officer at a bank is, in your experience, the best person to develop a relationship with?
I would say so. Yeah. Like I said, the loan officers and the loan processors, are the ones that are going to be sending the referrals. You'll get them. I have realtor people who send me referrals, and I'll get a few here and there, which are great, but I would say the most consistent is from, the actual, loan officer and those processors. I mean, like I said, you'll get a few from the other spheres, and I'm not saying don't discount that. I mean, you want to get them everywhere. Yeah. But, I would say the majority is coming from that loan officer. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been wanting to ask this question for a long time. Why is it that a loan officer is a stronger referral than maybe a real estate agent? What part of the sale makes it more conducive to be working with loan officers?
So what I see is they're the ones that are collecting these documents. They're the ones that are collecting the HOI certificates, things like that. So whenever there's a new purchase or a refinance, the people that I deal with out there will, look at it, and maybe it's coming from, I won't name any names of carriers, but, it'll come from a carrier that maybe they have their auto with or whatever. And it just comes back crazy high with a, maybe a 1% deductible. Yeah. And they just look at that and then they say, hey, I just want to make sure this. And then I have someone that, if you want, just give you a second opinion. And that's kind of where that happens for me. And then on the other hand, too, is there's a lot of, everyone that's buying a house is trying to spend as much as they can. So whenever it comes to debt to income, sometimes they call me and they say, listen, I don't know if you can help me, but it needs to be at $50 per month. So I have to run the quote without discounting coverages and find a carrier that's going to fit in that mold. So that's also another reason is, they may not even say anything to them, but the quote that they got from their carrier, ABC, is $1,000 per year, where it needs to be $800 per year. Sure. And then they come to me, so that's like I said, that's kind of where it happens.
Right. Awesome. And okay, so within the centers of influence, we want to find those loan officers or loan processors. If you were a new agent, let's say that I'm a new agent in, Missoula, Montana, and I'm starting my own agency. How would you advise me to go about, getting in front of a loan officer? Where would I look?
So, and this is something to keep in mind too, because I didn't start asking for business from this, mortgage broker that I deal with the most until I had enough carriers that I knew that I could give him a competitive rate. If you have carriers that aren't going to be competitive within the, demographic that he's giving loans to or the areas, then you're going to lose it right there, because he sends you a couple and you can't help him. Then he's just going to think, oh, this is just a waste of my time. I'm going to stop sending it to him. Right. So once I had, a couple carriers that I knew were, regionally specific and competitive, and I had a couple different options, whether they were, a little bit less on the credit, because credit's, really involved, that with insurance. So, I have some that don't weigh as much on credit, some that are heavier on credit. So I would say, once you have a good mix of carriers, that's when you're going to want to, approach one of these loan officers. And the way to do it, like I said, I was already in that sphere, so it was a little bit easier for me to get into that. But just, stopping by, and again, with the pandemic, it's a little bit tougher now with offices being closed and, only appointment only and things like that. But, just reach out to them and, just tell them that, you're going to be there for them. And, I would honestly tell them, hey, I know that, everyone's got a high debt to income ratio. And, whenever they, come with their home insurance, it might not fit within that range. And I can, most likely help you with that. I might not be able to do it every time, but, I'll do my best to get you to close, and
right. Yeah, that's a great insight. And so you've been in the insurance industry for quite some time, and how have you seen it change over, the years that you've been in the industry? What are the biggest changes that you've seen in the industry, and then as well as an agent?
So, since I've only been in it, 4 or 5 years, the insurtechs were coming around, honestly, right around that time. I mean, they're already there. But since I've started, almost every one of my carrier has updated their quoting platform to make it more simplistic and faster to get the quote, because, with the lemonades and the hippos and things like that, you put in an address and a name and a date of birth, and then boom, there's a quote. It already has all the replacement costs, it has the coverages, and then you can just toggle what you want. So in terms of within my 4 or 5 years, I would just say technology is probably the biggest thing that has changed the quoting platforms and how fast you can actually quote someone and get all the reports back and things like that.
Yeah. And what do you think that agents aren't doing today that they should be doing?
I would just say sticking to timelines. If you tell someone that you're going to do something, do it. And if you can't, you reach out to them and say, hey, something came up or whatever, and just keep them up to date in the process. They really appreciate that, and they'll remember that, and also, I know it's hard in the beginning to want to just sell as many policies as you can, but, some clients aren't going to be worth it. And that's just what it is. And, you don't want to just sell on price, like I have, me and my sister, I have guidelines, and I won't sell under certain bodily injury coverages and property damage and things like that. And if they don't want that, I understand, they can go somewhere else, but they're not going to remember the conversation that we had about the coverages and things like that whenever something happens and then they don't have enough. So, I think educating the customers is big. Like I said, they'll remember that, because I would say 75% of the people that I speak to, there's a lot of new home buyers, they have no idea what the home insurance policy is for. They call me for home maintenance and things like that, and I try to educate them what the coverages are actually going to be used for. in the event of a covered loss. So I think just educating your customers as best you can, showing them the gaps in their coverages that they have. Whenever you use InsurGrid and you get their declaration pages, I always send them an apples to apples and then kind of like a recommended coverages page, and things like that. So like I said, just educating them and, getting back to them, is big.
Yeah. Having that follow up and being able to stick to that timeline is really important in any sale. Right. And what different programs, what different technologies have you implemented that have been really useful for your agency, InsurGrid aside?
So I don't have a ton of stuff. There's a bunch of different things out there like Constant Contact and different things. To me, whenever I see those come to myself from other things, I just kind of delete them or look past them, and I do some email drip campaigns through Easy Links. Okay. But we're a little old fashioned that whenever we sell a new policy, we always send a thank you card and things like that. We have anniversaries and birth dates set up in our management system, so we get alerts on that, and we usually send a card out or something, all handwritten. As I grow, if that it might come to a point where that's going to be too much, service work, but I hope it doesn't. I hope that I can always, do that. But like I said, the management system is nice where I get the alerts on the renewals. If the renewal goes up more than 10%, I get an alert to contact them, make sure that, nothing has changed, see if they want me to re-quote them or if they're okay with it and just things like that. So, on the technology side, I don't, there's not too much special stuff that I use other than InsurGrid.
Yeah. Awesome. And you've been using InsurGrid for, a year now. I'm curious, what, as an agent, as a new agent who's new to InsurGrid, what are the main benefits that you're seeing from a platform like ours, and how can agents really leverage it to their advantage?
I would say that most people don't know what their coverages are. I apologize. Most clients don't know what they're covered for. They don't know what their coverages mean, things like that. So, whenever I'm talking to them and I'm asking them questions, they don't know what I'm talking about. So, to be able to have that up, and I have a screen sharing app, through Zoom or whatever. And I go side by side with their quote or their declaration page and my quote and show them, like I said, the gaps and things like that. So that's nice, so actually getting those deck pages sent to me is beneficial. And it's just ease of use. No one wants to talk to me. No one wants everything. Everyone wants something to be done as easy as possible. So if they can get all their information to me by just going through a couple of screens, and entering that in, that just helps as well,
Yeah. I love it. Back to the basics with the handwritten card. I think that's a lost art in today's world of business that really means a lot, because that human element to the sales process, I think, is really, really important.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious, Levi, when you started out, what was one thing that you wish you could go back in time and tell yourself now, knowing what you know now?
I really can't think of anything specific. I always, tried my best. In the beginning, it was tough. I kind of got discouraged a little bit. And I will say that in my first year, there were times where I probably didn't work as hard as I could have. So I would just say is, even if you get discouraged, because there might be times where you go a week or two without getting a sale, to not get discouraged, because it just comes in flows, So, 1 week you'll be very slow. The next week you're going to have too much work to get it all done. So just to, keep your head up and don't get depressed and things like that, just because you're not making a sale, and just stick to the basics, follow up, reach out, things like that. And I would say I got discouraged a lot my first year, especially because no carrier would give me. So I just thought that this wasn't going to work out. No carrier was giving me an appointment and things like that. But just, keep at it and try not to get discouraged.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. What is it in professional baseball? If you bat above 300, that you'll make it into the Hall of Fame. So one out of every three. So right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Levi, thanks for joining. Jason, any questions, any thoughts Anything that you would add to from the different questions that I was asking Levi?
No, it was really good to hear, Levi, how you said you struggled for the first year. That's kind of where I am. I'm about a year in. There's been several weeks where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is the right thing to do because I'm not selling anything. And then a couple weeks later, I'll sell 5 or 6 households. So yeah, same sort of thing. I'm just trying to keep with it. But my question for you, actually, Levi, when do you use the InsurGrid in your sales process? Do you tell them you're going to send them a link right away? Do you wait a little while? Like how does it fit within your sales process?
So it really depends on the conversation. My website also has a quoting tool. So sometimes I'll send it in tandem, if they don't have their, information to log in, or they don't know if they have an online account. I send a link in the email with the InsurGrid, and I also send a link to my website for that quoting system. In my quoting system, it's a bunch of pages where you'd have to enter in all of your information, all of your coverages, your VIN number, things like that. But that's what I would say. And it really just depends. It depends on where I'm getting the referral from and things like that, the age of the client, but what I've found is a little bit of the older clients, they want to do things on the computer if they can. I apologize. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, so I guess it really just depends on the situation,
And so you're saying, Levi, the more the younger generation caters more to a technology like InsurGrid, where an older generation, they might want to, talk to you on the phone.
Right. They want to talk on the phone, and some of the younger generation wants to talk on the phone too. But yeah, for sure, and they're much easier to give out their information, even though InsurGrid is secure and things like that. The older generation is a little bit less. They're more leery about entering in their online information and things like that. So that's kind of what I've found. But with the younger generation, it's no problem. They prefer that. They prefer that they could just not talk to you and you send them a quote.
Right. Yeah. No. Completely understand that. Well, awesome. Jason, I don't know if you had any other questions, but yeah, we're coming up on time here, but yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for jumping on, and Levi for providing all those insights, especially around the loan officer and how to approach them and what value to deliver when you do approach a loan officer, saying, hey, I can help with second opinions. I can help with that high debt to income ratio that you're looking for to close on that property. So that's really insightful.
Yeah. And again, don't get discouraged if you go to some and they blow you off, because they're definitely going to, there's going to be a lot of them that are going to blow you off, but all you need is a couple that are good and are high producing and that can send your referrals. And then it just blossoms from there. I mean, it's amazing how many referrals I get from those referrals, and that's kind of what surprised me the most, I'd say, is how many referrals, how many people are actually giving my name out, and referring me. So
keep at it, stay in the batter's box.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, guys. Well, Levi, Jason, thanks again for your guys' time. And next week, we're going to have another webinar, and we're just going to keep this rolling. But Levi, you're the agent spotlight of the week for InsurGrid.
Perfect.
So awesome,
Hey,
guys. You have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. See you later.